Aquarius. If you're listening to this right now, it's not because you're still waiting for them. It's because you already walked away. And here's the part that might surprise you: the moment you stop trying to be chosen is the moment they started panicking. Someone who once rejected you, not halfway, not confused, fully rejected you, is now sitting with words they never thought they'd have to say. I love you. Aquarius, this isn't about going back. This is about what shifts when you finally choose yourself. If you've been feeling this quiet change lately, type "I'm ready" in the comments and receive this message fully. Stay with me, because what happens next isn't about them coming closer, it's about who you've become. Aquarius, when you stopped speaking, something very subtle happened inside you. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet shift, like the moment before dawn when the sky changes color but no one notices yet. You did not shut down because you were cold. You went quiet because you were listening more closely than ever before. To your body, to the weight in your chest, to that familiar tired feeling that whispered, "This is costing you more than it is giving." There is a kind of silence that is not absence. It is awareness. You watched how often you were the one holding space, the one explaining, the one making things easier for everyone else while slowly shrinking yourself to fit. And somewhere along the way, you realized you were translating your needs into a language no one bothered to learn. That is not weakness, Aquarius. That is intelligence. That is emotional maturity arriving quietly. Have you noticed how different this silence feels from the ones before it? Not heavy with fear, not filled with longing, but steady, almost calm. This is the silence of someone who has already crossed a line inside themselves. You are ruled by air, Aquarius, but you are not disconnected from feeling. You feel deeply. You simply process privately. And when you finally stop speaking, it is not punishment. It is clarity arriving. You were not asking, "Do they care?" You were asking, "Why am I still explaining my worth?" And here is something rarely said out loud. Some people only feel safe loving you when you are available, but not autonomous. They admire your light, but they are unsettled by your independence. Your silence removed the distraction. It forced truth into the room. There is a moment that comes for you, Aquarius, when your nervous system finally exhales. When your shoulders drop. When you stop rehearsing conversations that never happen. And in that moment, something ancient inside you remembers itself. You do not chase alignment, you become it. Tell me something gently, and answer it just for yourself. Did your silence bring you peace before it brought anyone else discomfort? Because that matters. This phase you are in is not about distance. It is about discernment. You are no longer reacting. You are choosing where your energy goes and where it no longer leaks. What makes this moment powerful is not what they are feeling now. It is what you stopped feeling, the need to prove, the urge to convince, the quiet hope that someone would suddenly see what you have always been. You already know who you are, you just stopped narrating it for someone else. And as this unfolds, something is rearranging itself behind the scenes. Not through force, not through strategy, but through alignment responding to self-respect. Stay here with me a little longer. Because what rises next is not about the past returning. It is about the gravity of your presence changing the entire field around you. There comes a point, Aquarius, when waiting no longer feels patient. It feels heavy. Like standing at a train platform long after the last departure, still holding a ticket that no longer matches any destination. You did not wake up one morning and decide to let go. It happened quietly, in small moments that added up. A conversation that never reached you. A promise that stayed unfinished. A feeling that kept asking you to compromise yourself just a little more. And one day, without announcing it, something inside you settled. Not in anger, in truth. You noticed that hope had slowly turned into labor. That love was starting to feel like a negotiation. That your emotional intelligence was being used as a cushion for someone else's indecision. This is when your energy shifted. You did not pull away to be noticed. You did not go silent to create drama. You simply stopped offering explanations to someone who had already decided not to understand you. That choice was not loud. It was clean. There is a kind of power that only comes when you stop rehearsing your pain for someone who keeps asking for proof instead of presence. You did not harden your heart, you protected it. And here is something important, Aquarius. When you stopped waiting, you also stopped abandoning yourself. That matters more than any reaction you could ever receive from another person. Have you felt it? That subtle relief. The way your breath deepened once you no longer needed permission to move on. Letting go did not mean you stopped caring. It meant you stopped negotiating your worth. You are ruled by vision, by the future, by what could be. But this moment grounded you back into what is. Into your body, into your time, into the realization that love should not require you to disappear in order to survive. And here is where the universe always responds differently for you. Not immediately, not dramatically, but precisely. The moment you chose yourself, the dynamic shifted. Not because you demanded change, but because you were no longer available for the same pattern. Energy notices absence faster than words. Someone felt that. They felt the space where you used to soften things. They felt the lack of your emotional labor. They felt the reality of your absence before they ever understood the reason for it. That is how truth enters the room. Through silence that is no longer waiting to be filled. Ask yourself this gently. Did you feel stronger after you stopped explaining? Because strength does not always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like restraint, like knowing when not to reach back, like trusting that what is meant to meet you will not require you to chase it. What you did was not withdrawal. It was alignment, and alignment has consequences. Stay with me here, because what unfolds next is not about what you gave up. It is about what finally has the space to move toward you. And somewhere in that quiet space you chose for yourself, something subtle shifted in the universe. Not loud, not dramatic, just a gentle realignment the kind Aquarius energy understands deeply. Because when you stopped reaching out, something inside them began to tremble. They didn't notice it at first. It showed up as restlessness, as checking their phone more often than usual, as a strange heaviness they couldn't explain when your name crossed their mind. You see, Aquarius, your absence carries a frequency. When you are fully present, you bring clarity, ideas, emotional air to breathe. When you step away, the silence feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, almost too honest. They started realizing you were no longer there to absorb their confusion, no longer there to soften their edges, no longer there to quietly understand them without being understood in return. And for the first time, the role you never asked for but always carried disappeared. That is when the panic begins. Not because they suddenly became wiser, but because the mirror you once held up for them is gone. There is a moment like this, Aquarius. Astrologically speaking, it happens when detachment meets truth. When Uranian energy pulls back, forcing others to confront the space it leaves behind. And that space is loud, louder than arguments, louder than explanations you never gave. They start replaying memories they once minimized, moments they assumed would always be there. Your patience, your loyalty, your quiet way of staying even when it cost you something. Have you ever noticed how people only feel the value of air once it's hard to breathe? That is the state they're in now. Trying to understand when control slipped out of their hands. Wondering when certainty turned into risk. Asking themselves questions they avoided for a long time. What if you're truly gone? What if this time you don't come back? And here's the part I want you to hear gently. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about proving anything. This is about energetic consequence. You chose alignment over attachment. And the universe responded by restoring balance. There is a kind of fear that only appears when someone realizes they misjudged your depth. When they assumed your independence meant you didn't need emotional safety. When they confused your calm nature with permanence. That fear feels like urgency, like regret wrapped in sudden clarity, like love arriving late but arriving honestly. And I wonder, Aquarius, can you feel the difference between someone missing your presence and someone finally recognizing your worth? Because those two things are not the same. And your soul knows that. Right now, something is gathering momentum behind the scenes. Unspoken thoughts, unsent messages, words rehearsed in quiet moments before sleep. A confession forming not from confidence but from realization. And as this energy builds, the story isn't rushing, it's breathing, preparing you for what comes next. Because what approaches you isn't just an apology. It's a truth that had to mature in silence before it could be spoken out loud. Stay with me. The next moment carries more than you expect. Stay with me, Aquarius. Right here. Let your breath slow for a moment. Because as the silence around them grows heavier, another layer quietly reveals itself. Not the kind people like to talk about, but the kind they avoid when the lights are off and no one is watching. The truth is they felt something for you, more than they ever admitted. But feelings were never the problem. What they couldn't face was what those feelings demanded of them. You carry a depth that asks for presence, a clarity that invites honesty, and loving you was never casual energy. It required maturity, consistency, the courage to stand still instead of running when things became real. They sensed that, even if they never said it out loud. So they chose distance over responsibility, comfort over commitment. They relied on the unspoken belief that you would remain accessible, not owned, not claimed, just there. And for a long time, that illusion worked, until it didn't. Because when you stepped away, the emotional noise that been avoiding became impossible to ignore. The room felt emptier than expected, not lonely in a dramatic way, but hollow. Like something essential had quietly left. That emptiness started asking questions they were never prepared to answer. Why does everything feel unfinished? Why does calm feel unsettling now? Why does freedom suddenly feel cold? Here is something most people never say about Aquarius energy. You don't demand love loudly, you offer it steadily. And when it disappears, the absence speaks volumes. They are now facing a reflection they avoided for years. That they didn't reject you because you weren't enough. They rejected you because you asked them to grow. And growth felt heavier than loss, at least at the time. But time has a way of rearranging priorities. What once felt safe now feels stagnant. What once felt optional now feels irreplaceable. There is a particular kind of regret that surfaces when someone realizes they misunderstood the quiet strength of another person. When they thought your independence meant emotional distance. When they assumed your patience meant endless availability. That realization doesn't arrive gently, it arrives slowly, in waves, often too late to feel comfortable. And here you are, Aquarius, standing in a very different place now, more grounded, more self-aware, less willing to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's fear. This part of the story is not about blaming them. It is about reclaiming clarity. You see things clearly now, not through hope, not through longing, but through truth. And truth has a strange way of softening the heart while strengthening the spine. So let me ask you something, quietly. If someone finally sees you fully, not just your light, but your depth, not just your calm, but your needs, would you recognize the difference? Because what is forming ahead is not just an emotional admission. It is a confrontation with everything they avoided becoming. And as that truth rises to the surface, something shifts in the energy between you. The dynamic changes, the power balances, the story deepens. Take a breath. There is more unfolding beneath this moment. And it carries a different kind of weight, one that may change how you listen to what comes next. Stay close, Aquarius. This moment is quieter than the ones before it. But it carries a different kind of gravity. Because when words finally rise after a long silence, they are rarely impulsive. They come from nights that stretch too long. From memories replayed without your voice to soften them. From realizations that could no longer be pushed away. What they are feeling now is not urgency. It is inevitability. They have been holding these words inside longer than you realize, turning them over, testing them in their mind, afraid of what speaking them would expose. There is a particular vulnerability in admitting loss after pretending you never needed something. And that vulnerability humbles even the most guarded hearts. So when the words finally find their way out, they sound different, less dramatic, more fragile, less about convincing you, more about confessing to themselves. I miss you is not about absence. It is about recognizing how deeply your presence shaped their emotional world. I was wrong is not an apology for one moment. It is an admission that they misread you, misjudged your patience, mistook your calm for emotional distance. And I love you does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, carrying weight. Because love spoken this late is no longer a promise. It is a reckoning. What makes this moment powerful, Aquarius, is not what they are finally saying. It is where you are when you hear it. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are no longer rehearsing conversations in your head. You are no longer measuring your worth by someone else's readiness. You learned how to breathe without them, how to feel steady in your own orbit, how to build a life that does not pause at the sound of their footsteps. That changes everything. So when their words reach you now, they do not knock you off balance. They meet you standing upright, aware. And that awareness gives you a rare kind of freedom. You can listen without losing yourself. You can feel without abandoning your boundaries. There is no rush in your response. No need to perform understanding. No need to rescue them from their regret. You understand something now that many never do. That timing reveals truth just as much as intention does. Sometimes love is real, and still arrives too late to take center stage again. But that does not make it meaningless. It makes it honest. So ask yourself, gently, when those words reach your heart, do they bring peace or do they reopen a door you already closed with care? There is no right answer here. Only alignment, because this moment is not about their confession. It is about your discernment. And as you sit with that knowing, something else begins to form beneath the surface. A shift not in them but in what you are willing to receive. Stay with me. The story is moving toward a different kind of truth now. One that speaks less about love spoken and more about love sustained. Stay here, Aquarius. Let the words settle in your chest for a moment, because after the confession fades into the air, something steadier begins to take shape. Not loud, not dramatic, but grounded. This is where the energy changes. What you feel now is different from longing, different from hope. It is weight, the kind that comes with reality entering the room. They are no longer speaking from fear of loss alone. They are looking at the architecture of life itself. at mornings, at routines, at what it means to remain when things are no longer exciting, no longer uncertain, no longer idealized. And that is new for them. You see, Aquarius, some people fall in love with emotion. Others fall in love with possibility. But loving you has always required something else. It asks for consistency, for emotional presence that does not disappear when things become inconvenient, for a willingness to grow alongside you instead of watching from a distance. Only now are they beginning to understand that. There is a shift in how they speak your name. Less longing, more responsibility, less fantasy, more intention. They are thinking about building something that does not rely on excitement alone. About repairing what was broken without expecting instant forgiveness. About offering you safety not as a promise, but as a practice. And what is striking is this. They did not arrive here because you waited. They arrived because you stopped. When you no longer needed reassurance, they began to feel the absence of structure. When you stood steady on your own, they recognized how much stability you had quietly provided all along. This realization does not come easily. It humbles people. It strips away ego. It forces them to confront the difference between wanting someone and being ready to show up for them. And here you are, Aquarius, listening, observing, not swept away. You are not moved by words alone anymore. You listen for tone, for pacing, for follow-through. Your nervous system knows the difference now between excitement and safety, between chemistry and commitment, that is growth. So when they speak about staying, it does not automatically feel like relief. It feels like a question. Can this be steady? Can this be mutual? Can this exist without you shrinking to make space for someone else's comfort? You are no longer afraid to ask that quietly within yourself. And that changes the dynamic completely. There is a calm authority in you now. A maturity that does not demand certainty, but recognizes it when it appears. You do not need to be convinced. You need alignment. This moment is not about proving love. It is about demonstrating readiness. And readiness, Aquarius, is not loud. It is consistent. It is patient. It shows up even when no one is watching. So let me ask you something softly. If stability is being offered now, does it feel like an expansion or a return to something you have already outgrown? There is no pressure to decide, no timeline to honor except your own. Because what unfolds next is not about whether they stay. It is about whether what they bring can stand beside who you have become. Stay with this feeling. There is another layer forming just beneath it. One that will ask you to listen not with your heart alone but with your wisdom. Stay with me, Aquarius. Notice how the air feels different now. There is no urgency here, no pulling, no tightening in your chest the way there used to be. What rises instead is a calm that surprises even you. You are not moving away. But you are no longer leaning forward either. For the first time in a long while, time feels like it belongs to you. You can feel it in how you listen now, in how silence no longer makes you anxious, in how unanswered questions no longer feel like wounds that need immediate care. You have learned something essential about yourself. That love does not require pursuit. That clarity cannot be forced. That anything meant to last will not ask you to abandon your center just to keep it alive. This is not detachment. This is discernment. You are no longer scanning for signs, no longer reading between lines, no longer shaping your desires around someone else's uncertainty. You stand in a quieter confidence now, one that does not announce itself, one that simply exists, and because of that, your presence feels different, more solid, more complete. When they speak, you hear them. But you are not suspended by their words. You notice the space between sentences, the pauses, the truth beneath what is said. You understand something that only comes with experience. That timing is not just about when love appears. It is about who you are when it does. You are no longer asking for permission to choose yourself. You are no longer negotiating your boundaries for emotional reassurance. You are no longer afraid that waiting means losing. Waiting now feels intentional. Like standing at the edge of a clear lake, not to jump in immediately, but to feel the temperature first. To decide if the water matches where your body is today. And that is wisdom. You are open, yes, but not empty. Available, but not unguarded. You allow things to approach you at their natural pace. To reveal themselves without pressure. To earn their place in your life through consistency, not urgency. This version of you understands that real alignment does not rush. It unfolds, so when you feel their energy moving closer, you do not flinch, you do not retreat, you simply remain where you are, centered, aware, whole. And here is the quiet power in that. When you stop chasing outcomes, life begins to meet you honestly, without masks, without performances. Let me ask you something softly. If nothing had to be decided today, what would your body choose to do next? There is no deadline in this space, no ticking clock pushing you forward, only a gentle unfolding. only truth rising at its own pace. And as you rest in this steadiness, something subtle begins to shift again. Not around you, within you. A deeper clarity is forming, one that will not demand action, but will quietly illuminate the path ahead. Stay here a little longer. There is one more realization waiting, and it carries a kind of peace that does not ask to be proven. Stay with me, Aquarius. Let everything soften here, because what arrives now is not a conclusion. It is a quiet landing. After all the movement, the realizations, the pauses where your heart learned to breathe on its own, there is a deeper understanding settling into place. One that does not need to announce itself. One that simply feels true. This story was never about whether someone would come back. It was never about winning love, proving worth, or waiting for the right words to finally be spoken. It was always about you remembering who you are when no one is watching. You chose yourself in moments that felt lonely. You honored your dignity when it would have been easier to stay small. You learned how to release without bitterness. And that is a rare kind of strength. When you stopped being afraid of loss, something remarkable happened. Your energy shifted. Your presence deepened. Your life no longer revolved around someone else's uncertainty. And people feel that. Those who once underestimated your quiet loyalty now sense the space you once filled. Not because you announced your departure, but because your absence carried weight. Here is the truth many do not like to face. When you stop chasing, you become unforgettable. When you stop begging for clarity, your clarity becomes magnetic. When you walk away with self-respect intact, you leave behind an echo that lingers. And yet, this is not about them fearing they lost you. It is about you no longer being afraid of choosing yourself again, if needed. That is the victory. Whether you remain open to what returns, or you step forward into something entirely new, you do so from wholeness, not from lack, not from hope alone, but from alignment. You understand, now that love does not arrive to complete you, it arrives to meet you where you already stand. And because of that, your next chapter will feel different. Quieter, clearer, more honest. You will not confuse intensity with intimacy. You will not confuse attention with devotion. You will not confuse nostalgia with compatibility. You have outgrown that. What waits ahead of you is not louder love. It is steadier love. Love that does not require you to abandon your revision, your inner peace. And if someone chooses to walk beside you, they will have to walk at your pace. Not ahead of you, not behind you, with you. So let me ask you one final question gently. As you stand here now, grounded in who you have become, what kind of love would truly honor this version of you? There is no pressure to answer, no urgency to decide, just a quiet knowing unfolding inside your chest. This message does not tell you what to do. It reminds you of who you are. And that is enough. Take a breath. Carry this calm with you. Wherever you go next, Aquarius, you do not go empty-handed. You go with wisdom, with self-respect, with a heart that knows its own worth. And that is why, no matter what you choose, you have already won. Stay with me, Aquarius. Just a little longer. Because as this message settles, there is something gentle unfolding around you. Not an ending. More like a quiet blessing. If you found yourself nodding at any point, feeling that soft pressure in your chest, that sense of recognition that cannot be explained, that is not coincidence. That is resonance. This space exists for you. For the Aquarians who love deeply, think independently, and walk their path even when it means walking alone for a while. Here you are not rushed. You are not asked to be smaller. You are seen. Let the words you heard today rest inside you. You do not need to analyze them. You do not need to act immediately. Healing does not demand urgency. It invites presence. And presence is your strength. As you move forward, trust what feels calm rather than what feels loud. Trust what is steady rather than what is intense. Trust yourself, even when the world offers too many opinions. You have earned that trust. If this message touched something real in you, leave a comment below. Not for validation, but as a quiet signal to others who may be listening in the dark, wondering if anyone else feels the same way. You are not alone here. And if you want to continue this journey together, subscribe and stay close. More messages are coming. Deeper layers. Clearer truths. The kind that meet you exactly where you are. This channel is a space for reflection, growth, and calm clarity. A place where Aquarius energy is honored, not misunderstood. Where healing is not rushed, and wisdom is allowed to unfold naturally. Take a breath now. Let your shoulders drop. Feel your feet on the ground. Whatever you are releasing, you are allowed to let it go. Whatever you are becoming, you are allowed to step into it gently. The journey does not end here. It continues with you. And when the next message arrives, trust that you will feel it before you understand it. Until then, be kind to yourself. Stay open, stay grounded. You are exactly where you need to be.